I started my social media account and have been so consistent about it over the past 8 years now. And it's because I feel like I don't want to just reach the people in my clinic or my town. Like I've always felt like every woman needs to know this information about their body. Every medical provider needs to understand kind of how we can help their patients. So it's always kind of been my North Star for every decision that I make. I'm like, what am I trying to achieve here? I'm not trying to be an influencer and land brand deals. That is a really amazing part of my job now. But it's really always come back to like, I'm just trying to spread the love of what I care about and kind of my day job. But has become and evolved like a whole nother career for me.
Welcome back to the Med Creator 101 podcast. I'm Mimi Banks, the founder of MB Social. And I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Dr. Dustin Portella, board-certified dermatologist and med creator.
Good to see you again, Mimi. It's great to be here. Now, for our guest today, if you've ever scrolled through TikTok or Instagram looking for real talk on postpartum recovery or pelvic health, the chances are you've come across today's guest. Today, we are joined by the Vagina Whisperer herself, Dr. Sarah Reardon, who since 2007 has been caring for people's pelvic floor as a board-certified pelvic floor physical therapist. She's the founder of the V-Hive, an online pelvic floor workout platform for pregnancy, postpartum, menopause, painful sex, and pelvic floor strengthening. And now a soon-to-be published author. Her first book, Floored, A Woman's Guide to Pelvic Floor Health at Every Age and Stage, is available now for pre-order and releasing on June 10th, 2025. Dr. Reardon, it's a pleasure to have you join us today.
Thanks for having me, Dustin and Mimi.
So lovely to meet you. And I think by the time this airs, your book will be out.
I'm ready. I'm very ready.
I'm sure you are. It's like another kind of giving birth.
You know, it's funny because I initially thought that writing a book and kind of putting it out in the world was like giving birth. But now that it's actually here, I'm more like it's like raising a child and then sending them off to college. Like you've just worked so hard and like raised this baby into a grown up. And now you're like, okay, fly, child, fly. So that's where I'm at.
I am ready. I'm ready to let you spread your wings.
Get out of the house, you know.
So we like to start by getting to know our guests a little bit personally. Are you open to answering a few questions?
Oh, for sure.
Great. So what's something you never thought you'd say in a professional call, but now say on the regular?
That queefing is a pelvic floor issue.
I kind of expected that, but not really. Be honest, do your friends secretly text you weird stuff? Female things?
All the time. I'm like so many people's pocket vagina whisperer, which I actually enjoy because if they don't ask me, they may not be asking anyone. So I think that every pelvic floor physical therapist is likely in that role. But I mean, everything from questions to pictures and all kinds of stuff.
I can only imagine. And before we talk about pelvic health in general, but what's one thing that people always get wrong about what you do?
I think that people think pelvic floor therapy is Kegels. Like, oh, just go to someone and they can teach you how to do your Kegels. And it's absolutely incorrect. There's so much more nuance to what we do. And my hope is with this podcast and with my book, Floor, to really demystify the pelvic floor and help women better understand their bodies and to help medical providers know how to screen for these issues.
I have a patient who also is a pelvic floor PT, and just in getting to know her, the demand for your profession that nobody really knows about is so high, and her practice got so busy so quickly that she's now hired 2 other people to join her. And it's really something I think deserves a lot more conversation and attention.
No, I agree. And I have to thank social media for that. I mean, that is the power of social media. You know, there's so much good, bad, and ugly out there, but hands down, it was starting my Instagram account, the Vagina Whisperer, in 2017, and just the exponential growth of social media over time and the awareness of pelvic floor therapy has really just helped elevate our field so much.
So speaking of the Vagina Whisperer and your name, it's very bold and it's very memorable. What inspired it?
You know, actually, it's something that my girlfriends came up with. I wish I could take the creative credit. But when I started my Instagram account, I was pregnant with my second son. And I also had a lot of friends who were having babies around the same time. And I would be messaging them, or they would be messaging me rather, like, how do you do perineal massage? Or what's the best brace for your belly? Or how do I modify workouts during pregnancy? So I just started putting it on social media thinking this will be a place for them to come back to and refer to. And I chose social media because it was free. Like you could open up an Instagram account and it's still free. And so it was just kind of an easy place to start dropping tips. And this was back in the day when you just used to post a picture and then write a couple lines under it. It was just much less of a low-hanging fruit. But I named it that because that was their nickname for me.
So it went from group chat to social media?
I know. Yeah, very much. And, I think a lot of what I can attribute to, my personal growth on social media is that I started at a time where things were very authentic. Like I went out there and I was pregnant and I was talking about like peeing my pants during pregnancy and breastfeeding struggles afterwards. And so it was very much focused on pelvic health, but also really personal because it was tracking my own journey. And it was just unfiltered. And so one of the beautiful things and that I feel really fortunate about is that I kind of show up in whatever state I'm in, like messy mom bun or like half the time I have my jammies on. And so it's just, I started showing up like that. And that's who came into the account, into the community. And I feel lucky that I don't have to always be kind of done up or made up. I've always kind of showed up as who I am. And that's nice to have that persist at this time.
I think that's incredible. I mean, we talk about authenticity so much, and I have a 19-month-old. Actually, she's turning 20 months tomorrow. And so I can very much relate to messy bun, pajamas, trying to get it all done. I just haven't been as bold to share that publicly.
And it's not for everyone. I don't think that social media is for everyone. I think that how we show up is very different. But to me, this is my comfort zone. It's not everyone's comfort zone. So I think that's important for me, but I think it's also important for other creators.
I agree. I think showing up how you feel at best as you is what comes out and what people see, and probably one of the many reasons why people want to follow you. But let's talk about pelvic floor health for a second. It sounds clinical, but it's actually what you said. It's like peeing when you laugh or peeing when you do jumping jacks. Can you explain more or less what the pelvic floor is and its significance in overall health?
To me, it's the most important group of muscles in your body. Your pelvic floor is a basket of muscles that sit at the base of your pelvis. So we're all familiar with that bony pelvis that we put our hands on our hips or we kind of press our pubic bone in the front. That's your pelvis. And at the very bottom is literally the floor of your core, the floor of your pelvis. And that basket of muscles is what we call your pelvic floor muscles. Those muscles in the female body support the uterus and the ovaries, the bladder and the bowels. In the female body, it has 3 openings, one for urine to exit at the urinary sphincter, one for poop to exit at the anal sphincter, and then has the vaginal canal for vaginal birth, menstruation, and vaginal intercourse. Males also have a pelvic floor. That's a very common myth that they don't have a pelvic floor or pelvic floor issues, but that's not the case. But male bodies have 2 openings. They obviously don't have a vagina, and they don't go through some of the same life transitions that we do as females, like no pregnancy, no birth, no menopause. So they're less susceptible to pelvic floor dysfunction, but they absolutely can still develop it, and we still treat them as well.
And so you have male patients too?
Oh, 100%. Even as the Vagina Whisperer. My male patients love it. They think it's hilarious to be like, I go see the Vagina Whisperer.
I had no idea this is something for men too.
Yeah. I mean, and kids, it's also not just for pregnant and postpartum people. It's, you can develop these issues at every age and stage. And I talk about that in my book. One of the biggest questions I get is, when should we start educating women about this part of their body? And I say when they become women, like when they start menstruating, we should be having these conversations about their pelvic floor and their muscles. And, at every stage of life, then it becomes sexual activity and then pregnancy and birth and perimenopause. We should be having these proactive points of education and healthcare systematically implemented for us.
Similar to how medicine has many different disciplines or specialties and subspecialties, pelvic floor physical therapy is a subdiscipline of physical therapy. Was this your plan to go into pelvic floor care when you became a physical therapist or when you went to physical therapy school? Or how did that choice come about to get into pelvic health?
Surprisingly, I always wanted to be a pelvic floor therapist when I graduated. I don't know if it was just like, yay, vaginas, let's go save them and, save the world one vagina at a time.
And that is the name of the podcast, right? Here we go.
I did start physical therapy school right after undergrad, and I thought I'm going to be a sports PT. I loved running. I thought I was going to come back to New Orleans and be like a trainer for the Saints or something fabulous in the sports world. But during my PT school education, one of my professors was a pioneer in what was then called women's health, but now is called pelvic health. And she just gave a short 2-week lecture on pelvic floor therapy and these muscles. And I was fascinated that I was like, I've never heard of these muscles, but yet they're so important to things we do all throughout the day, from peeing and pooping and exercise and breathing. And I just really appreciated learning more about my own body as a woman. And then when I did a clinical rotation in pelvic floor therapy while I was still in grad school, I loved working with the patients. I just thought it was so rewarding to help someone better understand their body and to overcome these really kind of embarrassing issues that were affecting their quality of life that no one even knew existed, like pain with sex and they were trying to get pregnant, or recovering from breast cancer and they were like, I survived breast cancer, but now like my vagina hurts, or constipation and, not traveling because of fear of not having access to a bathroom. So just these really kind of secretive closed door conversations that we could finally have in the open and help them overcome these problems was so rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds fascinating. And you have to love what you do every day. And when you're in a field like that, it sounds like it would be very rewarding.
I do love what I do. And I graduated in 2007. So I've been doing this for 18 years. It comes off, I think, on social media or kind of in medicine now that this is like a new field, but it's not. I feel like a dinosaur in the field, in fact. But Katrina, I'm from New Orleans, and Katrina had just happened when I graduated. And so I actually moved to Austin because it was a southern city and there was one physical therapist there practicing this. And she kind of took me under her wing and mentored me. And I think one of the things I loved about also this practice is that we have the luxury of time with patients. Like our sessions are 1 hour long. And in no other facet of medicine, really, do you get that time, or even physical therapy, do you get that time? So being able to really spend 1 hour one-on-one with a patient and really help them in a very intense way was just one of the reasons I loved it. And it's very kind of relationship building. I mean, I have patients who came to my wedding and, that are still dear friends now. And I think it's because of the way that we practice that was also attractive to me.
I can see that you bring that passion into your social media content as well. And you've really helped to demystify these topics and just make it more acceptable for people to talk about it. And we kind of understood a little bit about why you got started on social media, answering questions for friends, things that would come up with patients. As you started to post and grow on social media, was there a moment where you realized I'm not just a PT, I'm also a creator now, and this is a big part of my career?
I think when y'all asked me to be on the podcast, I was like, oh, I'm a creator. Okay. I think, it's interesting because I still see myself as a medical professional. I still see myself as like, that is my main hat. I would say that it's when I started like sharing links to things or sharing, it actually does influence people. Like I'll share about like a lubricant that I really like. And my patients are like, oh, I bought that because you posted. I'm like, oh, okay. So like people are listening to what I'm saying. And with that comes weight. So I'm very selective about the brands that I work with and the people who I work with because I don't want to be a billboard for a bunch of products. I'm still very much kind of awareness and education driven, but I do want to get behind, I think, brands and organizations that are very mission oriented to help improve the healthcare for women. But it was funny because I went to a conference recently that was like a mom influencer conference. And it was the first conference I had been to that was not a medical conference. And I'm used to going to like these nerdy scientific sessions. And these sessions were like how to become an affiliate and like how to do your taxes as a influencer. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not an influencer. What am I doing here? But I am. That's not the first hat I think of when I think of myself.
And it's very much the same way for me as a dermatologist. I'm in my office. I just saw 40 patients today. I wish I had an hour with each patient the way that you do. That would be really fantastic. And that's certainly the primary thing that I do. When people ask me what I do, if I'm, traveling and get to know somebody, sit down by dinner, what do you do? I'm a dermatologist. I'm a YouTuber. I'm a content creator. But it is an important part of what I do in sharing that information. There's kind of that moment where you're like, this is a thing that I do. This is important work and it helps far more people than I can see in the one-on-one setting.
Yeah. And I think that that's why we got into it. I mean, I can say for myself, I started my social media account and have been so consistent about it over the past 8 years now. And it's because I feel like I don't want to just reach the people in my clinic or my town. Like I've always felt like every woman needs to know this information about their body. Every medical provider needs to understand kind of how we can help their patients. So it's always kind of been my North Star for every decision that I make. I'm like, what am I trying to achieve here? I'm not trying to be an influencer and land brand deals. That is a really amazing part of my job now. But it's really always come back to like, I'm just trying to spread the love of what I care about and kind of my day job. But has become and evolved like a whole nother career for me.
And I think that's really key that you've got that core mission. And I see that the people who really succeed on social media and continue to maintain that core of authenticity, the reason that they got into it in the first place, really connect with their audiences in a better way over the long term.
I agree. And I was going to say that passion comes through because you're providing a safe space, I think, for a topic that's not often talked about. You're normalizing a topic and for something that some people are just uncomfortable with. And so you're creating that community. I'm curious to know how you've thought about, or if it was a thought about how making something that's not really talked about publicly. And you said it's coming across as new, even though it's not new because it's, something that's been around. But I think socially or publicly, it's kind of new.
Very much so. I think the interesting thing about it being like taboo to talk about is it's never been taboo for me to talk about. And I think that's why I do it so easily, is that this is literally 40 hours of my week I'm having these conversations. But the flip side of that is that patient after patient comes in and they all say, like, why didn't anyone tell me sooner? Why didn't I get referred earlier? I wish I would have known about this for my first birth. So I think that all of that feedback continues to kind of drive of like, okay, we need to keep putting out this education. And even though you feel like you've said the same thing or delivered the same information, the way that social media works now is that like other new people are seeing it, or you have new followers, or you're delivering it in a different way that it resonates. So I think it's, I've always talked about these things, so it's very comfortable for me. Obviously, other people don't. And it's also, I want people to feel less alone. I think that these really are, pelvic floor problems are often embarrassing and private and intimate. And so I think being able to talk about them just helps other people know that they're not alone.
So you've created this safe space for people to know that they're not alone. How do you foster that trust online?
I think that it's actually interesting. So I respond. I have a virtual admin, but we respond to every DM that comes in. It's not like an Autobot, which is fine for some people if that's how you have to manage it, but we'll respond and we'll say like, oh, we have a blog post about this. And so there is time. It's time intensive, but it's important to me that they get this information. And then same thing if we have, a client who has a question about my workouts, I actually respond to every single one. We'll see how long this keeps happening. But it's important to me that they have this info and that it's coming from me. I think every little kind of personal touch point that you can have is important. And I think about social media and the interactions in the same way that I think about patients in our offices. Like, when somebody emails me from my clinic, like I don't wait 4 days. I'm like, no, we need to respond to that by noon the following day at the latest, So it's kind of giving them, they're coming to you because they need something and I want to be responsive. I think that the other thing that I foster is that I don't just post about pelvic floor stuff. Like I post about my life. I mean, I post about how hard this struggle can be, or maybe how kids affected my marriage, or how being pregnant kind of changed my body and that's a struggle for me, or different things like that. And so I think that having some personal touches also builds trust because you're presenting yourself as a human and not just like an educator.
So they see you as a friend, as an extension of themselves, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. And then also, like, I'm in my bathroom, like, pooping half my videos, So, like, we're already building an intimate relationship,
Already they feel like they know you and they can either relate, say what they want to say.
I get the sense that your followers are treated just like your patients in your clinic, even though it is a slightly different relationship, but you take the relationship just as seriously. And just like patients that come and see you on a weekly basis for an hour at a time are going to get to know you and your personal life and how many kids you have, all those things. That's, similar to what people online will get to know. And that really does build that personal relationship and create a feeling of safety and trust with the audience. And I think that's really important.
It is. And it also takes a lot of vulnerability, and I think when you set out to create these things, I don't always think we realize who's on the other end of them. And sometimes it's been really hard. Like there's definitely been times that I've been trolled and it's been ugly. And it's like you start questioning, like, is this all worth it? And then there's times where people are like cheering you on because you were putting out a book, or they're like sending you messages about how they feel seen by what you're sharing. But, I think that there's always kind of a flip side. There's two sides to it. But again, it's like always kind of coming back to like, why am I doing this? And it is because I fundamentally believe that women deserve better care. And by being vulnerable, you open yourself up. Like I posted this picture of myself the other day with these new glasses from Warby Parker that I thought were like super modern. And I was like, how does everybody feel about these? And like 80% of people were like, meh, no. And somebody messaged me and they're like, oh gosh, they're so mean. I was like, no, but I asked for their opinion. Like if I'm going to put myself out there, I'm going to get feedback and you just have to take it. You have to have thick skin.
I was just going to ask you, do you have thick skin?
You have to have thick skin, Doesn't mean things don't hurt my feelings. Having actually a virtual assistant actually gave me a little bit more of a layer of protection because there was a time when reproductive rights were changing and, it was a tough time for women and it was just getting really hard to kind of see all the comments. So having a virtual assistant for me puts a little bit of a layer of protection where I feel like she can screen things for me sometimes if they start going a little bit bananas and be like, hey, this is getting out of hand. How do you want me to handle it? So that's also been helpful.
That's smart. And so then what informs what you post or what you don't post?
Sometimes it's a patient scenario. Like I'm working with a patient and I'm like, oh, that would be like a really good thing to post. Like I'm surprised that people don't know this. Sometimes it's just like an idea I have in the shower and I'm like, oh, that would be funny. Sometimes it's a trend and I'm like, oh, this would be a cool way to deliver this information. It comes from multiple sources of inspiration. And sometimes it's what's current, it's like who's talking about pelvic floor stuff. And now it's not just education. It's like we're responding to stitches or like, a vulva gown at the Oscars so there's a lot more current events that you have to be timely with, but it's just kind of a mix of everything.
It's interesting though, because your approach to patients is very similar to Dustin's. I've never heard anybody else talk about that they approach everyone in their community the same way that they would treat someone who would come to them in the clinic. So as you were saying that, it made me think of the only person I've ever heard say that has been Dustin. So you have a very similar outlook.
Yeah, and I think it has a lot to do with probably Dustin's success too, is people feel like they know you and therefore they trust you. That's important. And I would say one thing that's been important to me is I don't ever like slam or shame or call anybody else out who's putting stuff out that I disagree with. I mean, there's a fire hose of information. A lot of it is by uncredentialed individuals. It nudges me to like put something out that's like, what is evidence-based and what is the correct thing? Those are other sources of inspiration. But, I think that the energy we put out in the world is important and the energy that we put out on social media is important. I don't always get it right. I've definitely missed the mark and made some major mistakes, but we learn.
And if you have trust with your audience, they're accepting to that and they'll continue to be with you because they know that you're willing to own up to mistakes and come back and correct the record when something, changes, when new evidence comes out.
You're so right. There was a time that I put something out about like breastfeeding stuff or something. And then somebody was like, that's incorrect. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that, And so then I did another post. It was like, oh, my bad, y'all, like got it wrong. Here's actually the new evidence. And so I think people kind of appreciate that. And like, that's what I would do in real life. We want to get defensive, but we also, again, like bring it back to the mission, the North Star is like, hey, we are trying to educate people and help them. So let that be the guide as to how you respond to things.
I want to transition a little bit into kind of the nuts and bolts of creating content. Obviously, you started on the days when Instagram was pictures and you could do text underneath with your caption, and then everything has now become video. Was that a difficult transition to putting yourself on camera rather than just posting photos?
So hard. I think I was late to Reels. My admin was like, you need to do Reels. I was like, I can't do Reels, I'm so glad I did. It's kind of like with AI now. It's like I'm not using AI enough. And I'm like, you feel like if you're not ahead, you're behind. So I think with Reels, it was you definitely had to get out of the zone of what you've always done. And I think we've learned with social media that things are ever evolving and changing. Like once you feel like you've gotten something, it's going to shift, So you can either choose to hang on to what you always did, or you can choose to be like, okay, I need to push myself more. I need to get more creative. I need to think about this differently and start moving in that direction. So that was a big shift. But now, again, pretty much everything I do is video and Reels.
And you started with Instagram, and then was there any strategy in creeping onto other platforms? Do you mostly repurpose the same content, or is there unique content posted on different platforms?
I was definitely late to the TikTok train. And I think that this was during COVID times when I was running a business and home with 2 kids. And I was like, I cannot put another thing on my plate. Well, I missed the train. And it's like, I have 20,000 followers on TikTok and I have almost 700,000 on Instagram, and I think some people went the other way. They built up on TikTok and it's hard to go Instagram. And right now what I do is I actually multi-purpose. So I put the same thing on both platforms. But there was a time where I was doing both. It's just really time intensive for me. And if anything, Instagram has become more like TikTok, which makes it easier to transfer those assets to both platforms.
I agree. When you make content, are you setting aside time and batching the content where you create lots of different pieces at once, or are you sprinkling it throughout the week? How do you approach that?
For 8 years, I was like, would make a post, edit it, and post every day.
8 years?
Almost every day. It's pretty wild. And then about a year ago, so I would say maybe 7 years I did that. And then about a year ago, I started batching. And I was like, batching is going to mess up my creativity and I'm not going to be able to get to things timely. But I'll batch content on Mondays is kind of my day. I block my morning so the lighting is good, which is important. And I haven't had a bunch of meetings yet. So there's not a bunch of stuff on my to-do list. And I'll go through like a list of ideas and then I'll think about like, how do I want to do this? And then I'll just record a bunch of stuff and then it gets edited later. But if something kind of current or trending comes up, then I'll just do that one thing. So it's not like you can carve out time to do that one thing versus a bunch of things. So for a long time, I didn't batch and now I do. It's just not sustainable any other way.
And we've talked a little bit about some of the help that you have on this. You mentioned having a virtual assistant as being a great way to unload some of your time. How did you find a virtual assistant and how do you coordinate your work with them?
There's 2 ways. One is I put a call out on my social media. I was like, I'm looking for a virtual assistant. And I had a Google form and had a bunch of people apply. And it was really time intensive to find someone, but I'm no longer with that original person. But I would say like through my community is how I have found a lot of people because it's a group that's already behind you. They believe in you.
And they know you.
They know you. So I found my graphic designer that way. I found my email marketing person that way. So it's all been through like, hey, I'm looking for this. Can someone help me? It's how I found the medical illustrator for my book. I mean, it's really just been wild. But the VA I have now used to be the front office admin at my clinic. And then she moved. And so she has come on as my social media and just admin for so much stuff. She's really my work wife is what I call her, which everyone needs.
Yeah. I can attest to that as well. When you're running a clinic and then trying to be relevant on social media and connect with your audience, bringing in good people that can help you achieve that mission, that believe in the same things that you do. And you've really fostered that with your community where these people have a passion about what you do because of the help that it's given them or have similar interests. So I think that that's really helpful and something that, listeners of the podcast can learn from is that as you start to get busier, I personally think that investing in those kind of resources really yields itself, many-fold coming back to you to just allow you to continue to do the things you're really passionate about.
I agree with you, Dustin. I think that there's always this tipping point where you feel like I'm so busy, I can't do this. And then I'm like, okay, I need to outsource this. Like if I'm spending hours editing a reel when I could be ideating or treating patients or building my online platform or writing my book, like it was just when things start becoming so time intensive and the ROI on that time is not valuable, not even just from a financial sense, but just from like a strategy sense, And when you get so bogged down with these little tasks, I felt less creative. I was like, I didn't have the space to like come up with fun ideas or ways to think about things or what I want to do. I agree with you. I think a lot of people fear hiring someone, but it really, I have an incredible team. I cannot sing their praises enough. And I'm always like, please don't leave me, but it's incredible. And it almost feels like family because you're just work together so much and so consistently and they're all virtual, so we're all super supportive of one another.
What does your workforce look like? You've got a virtual assistant. I know you've got some people that do some of the video editing and maybe help with some of the ideation or keeping you up to date on trends. What other people or tools do you regularly employ?
So for social media, I have folks who kind of edit the videos and come up with some ideas, or if there's something trending, they're like, hey, do you want to take a look at this? And then I have an admin who responds to some DMs or they'll shoot me a message. She actually just takes a screenshot of the message. She's like, hey, how can I respond to this? Or what do you want to say? So if there's anything clinical that's kind of comes to me. But, being a what we call creator that's not like my full-time job. It's almost like a pathway to what I really do. And I'm a physical therapist in person, but I have an online fitness platform for pelvic floor exercises. So that is where the majority of my energy and time goes. And that team consists of, I have an email marketing person who puts in all of our email funnels. I have a graphic designer who creates all the design for those emails and also like some carousels and things like that. I have a copywriter who helps write the emails. We talk about ideas and she helps put some of them out. And then I have a project manager who she kind of oversees like everything, like email marketing. And we're building an app right now for my workouts. Like, I don't know why I decided to like launch a book and build an app at the same time. But I have like an IT team actually in Canada who helps with app development. So there's just a lot of moving parts. And I think when you, just like you, Dustin, you're not just a doctor. Like there's so many different things. And I think when we're in these spaces and we have people asking for certain things, we start building our own brand, which could be online fitness platforms. It could be our own skincare line. It could be, a separate product or service. So I think that we are just evolving out of that just clinical care space. And there's so many other things to manage.
So many other things to manage. And I think that it's worthwhile chatting about even what Dustin was asking about your team, but you're also a mom and you see patients. So there's the Vagina Whisperer, there's Dr. Reardon, there's Sarah, there's mom, there's all these different facets. So how do you balance? How do you prioritize? How do you make it all happen?
It's shifted. I think at every season of my career, I'd say over the last 8 years since I started social media, it has always shifted. Hiring more people has helped open up a lot of time because I'm kind of just managing what they're doing and they're managing me. They're like, hey, Sarah, this is due. Hey, Sarah, we need this, which I love. Like, I'm like, manage up, So I have folks who do that. I think a really interesting part of my story is I actually opened a clinic in New Orleans 7 years ago. And I left a hospital, opened my own private practice. And one of the reasons I did it was because I needed more flexibility. I had 2 young kids. I didn't want to work until 7:00 at night at a hospital or do weekends. So I opened a cash-based private practice, hired a couple more therapists, had some front office admin. And then when I was propositioned by a publisher to do a book, I was like, oh, this is a great idea. I'd really love to do that. But I can't have an online platform and run a clinic and write a book and be a mom and a human and a wife and a friend. So I actually decided to sell my clinic. And I sold it to the 2 women who were working for me. They were my employees. And it wasn't like a huge deal, like a huge financial deal. It was like, hey, I'm at capacity. I still want to practice, but I can't run this business and do all of these other things well. I could do them, but I can't do them well. And so they bought the practice from me and I work for them. I was working 3 days a week. I actually went down to 1 day a week when I was writing my book and launching it because it was so time intensive. So I sold my practice and that felt like almost like giving away your baby. It was like you built this from like the back of a yoga studio and now it's like you're passing it on, but I couldn't do more without letting something go and still be a mom who could pick my kids up from school several days a week and go to their practices at night and have dinner with my family around the table. So it's always shifting. I think the past 2 years of writing my book has been really probably the most time I've spent away from my kids. But, when I'm with them, I'm like trying not to be on my phone. I'm driving them to the practices and doing the things that moms complain about. But like, I miss that stuff when I'm not there. So I'm really looking forward to the nap after the book launches, but the 2-month nap, but you never have it all, and I don't think that's what I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to stay true to what I want professionally, but they're also my North Star. And I won't take something on that I feel like can't work with my family too. And I have a very supportive husband, like very supportive. He works full time. I work full time. I mean, we bicker and fight about like who's doing more, but we both have a lot of flexibility, and that also is what helps us parent and work in today's world.
That's really key.
I think what the other thing to think about is people see where you are now and they're like, oh my gosh, she exploded. She grew so fast. She wrote a book. And I'm like, I've been practicing for 18 years. Like I started this social media account 8 years ago. It's very easy for us to look around at like what everybody else is doing and achieving, but what you don't see is like they've been doing this a long time and it's a lot of work. I mean, this stuff just does not happen. I'm not lucky. I work hard. I work very hard. And I won't say that like, oh, I just got lucky. I'm like, nope, worked hard here. There were some maybe lucky encounters, but no.
It reminds me of the quote, the overnight success, 10 years in the making.
Right. That's exactly right.
That's very true. And so before we wrap, I really want you to tell us about Floored, your upcoming book, and the offer.
I have a book out. It is called Floored, A Woman's Guide to Pelvic Floor Health at Every Age and Stage. You can see the hammock, which is the pelvic floor, and then the juicy grapefruits.
Hardcover, too.
Hardcover, yeah. This book is really a guide for women. It's also a resource for medical providers, but our pelvic floor changes at every age and stage of our life, and we are not getting the proactive education to prevent problems. Like there's so much you can do to prevent leakage and prolapse and pain. And we're also not given tips on how to improve them, or the demand is high for therapy and there could be wait lists. It could be expensive. You may not have accessibility to one. So I think the beautiful thing about medicine right now is we have options. We have in-person sessions, we have online programs, we have telehealth, but then now we have a book as well. So I think really help meet people where they are and give them options to learn about their bodies. And everyone who orders the book on my website, you will get 30 days of pelvic floor workouts to my platform so that you can start your journey right away. And it's not just Kegels, it's definitely for every age and stage of life. And a lot of people need like relaxation and yoga and not just strengthening. So it's really something that I hope, again, even with the book, it was like, I don't have a goal of like being on this bestsellers list. I was like, no, I want something that's going to help people. Like those are all just like the nice to haves. But the goal is to change the way we care for women and their pelvic floors. And that's what I really hope that Floored does.
With our audience being largely healthcare professionals, there's a lot to learn in there too that could help your patients regardless of what specialty you're in. I know that it's something we come across in dermatology when people may struggle with incontinence or other things and have rashes that appear in the area as a result. And so I'm definitely interested in learning more myself. So we really appreciate your time. I think this has been incredibly fun for one, and also educational and entertaining for our audience. So we wish you the best of luck with the book launch and hope you do make that bestseller list.
We sure do. We sure do. And if people want to follow you, where should they follow you?
I am on Instagram as the Vagina Whisperer. It's the.vagina.whisperer. And I'm on TikTok as the Vag Whisperer because TikTok does not like the word vagina. And my website is thevaginawhisperer.com, where I have tons of blog posts and you can access your free workouts on there. It's all kind of hosted on there and learn more about the book as well. So if you type in the Vagina Whisperer, I'll pop up.
We'll find you there. Very good. Well, thank you to our audience for tuning in to today's episode, and hope you found many pearls to take away in your own journey on social media, sharing high quality health information and maintaining that authenticity and core and the true mission of why you got into healthcare in the first place. If you found this episode helpful, leave us a 5-star review on your podcast player of choice and share this episode with a friend who's interested in growing an audience on social media to help more people online. Follow us on Instagram at MedCreator101 and DM us any questions that you have. We'll see you on the next episode.